Behind the Dish is sponsored by DBAT. Check out dbat.net for baseball and softball products, franchise information, and to find a location near you. And now your host, John Piper.
John Piper with Behind the Dish. I'm so pleased and honored to be joined by first ballot Hall of Famer, pitching legend with the Atlanta Braves. I know he's very humble. I can tell by the facial expressions. 8-time All-Star, 1995 World Series champion, 96 Cy Young Award winner, John Smoltz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Man, it was awesome. I'm over here. We're in Waco, Texas. Have you ever been to Waco before?
I have.
For the baseball convention?
Yes.
That's awesome. Glad you're coming back. I was sitting here waiting. You had a function, a luncheon you were attending here, and just a bunch of baseball people. And you were just having baseball conversations with baseball people, and that seems to be your element.
Yeah, baseball obviously has been a bbig part of my life, and it continues with the broadcasting after baseball. I didn't think this would be part of what I was going to do, but I think that, the love of the game and the game that I played for so many years, like anything, has its challenges, moves on, changes, and people are always inquisitive about what to do, how to do it, and so on, and I got a lot of those questions.
Well, growing up in Lansing, Michigan, obviously I think you're a three-sport athlete, basketball, football, and baseball.
Yeah, my dad made a good decision and didn't let me play football in high school, so I played the three sports. Basketball is my, what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. Baseball just absolutely was the reason I could go farther. Yeah,
a lot more action on the basketball court. Baseball, you have to have a lot of patience and perseverance. Obviously, you learned that very well. When was it, John, that you knew that baseball, well, I think in reading part of your book, starting and closing, and I'm excited to get more into this one. You mentioned, I think at age 7, you knew or had the passion and the desire to play professional baseball.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I grew up in a musician's home. My mom and dad were both musicians and teachers, and I thought they probably felt best that I would follow in their footsteps. Unfortunately, I had other plans that I wanted to pursue, and they let me do it. But I think when I got to my junior year in high school, I realized that baseball was a future for me, even though if I could have played basketball in college, which would have been an absolute blast. Never going to college, didn't get a chance to do that, but getting drafted and pursuing my dream was started at 7, ended at 41, and is kind of still going as a broadcaster.
Yeah,
now.
You're at the ballpark, all the time. I enjoy, as a fan, I've got 2 boys that play baseball, one's still playing, and we enjoy tuning in and watching your broadcast because you bring so much of the game as a former player, at the highest level. The color commentating that you do, I can tell you as a fan, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I've never worked harder at anything I've ever had to do because the biggest thing is, even though you know the game, when you're a player playing in the game, you only have to worry, as far as the pitcher goes, you only have to worry about the 8 or 9 other guys you're facing. You don't really care about or have to know about everybody else. Well, as a broadcaster, you got to know about 50 now, 25 on each side. So you have to put a lot more work in, studying a lot more, looking at numbers that make me my head want to spin, watching video, and trying to formulate a plan in my mind that would be relevant to what the guys are doing today, and giving the fan or the viewer at home an opportunity to kind of pick inside someone's brain to see how it operates in the game is what my desire has always been.
John, for every, one knock on Major League Baseball right now is the length of the game, 3.5, 4+ hours.
Yeah.
As a broadcaster, for every 4-hour game, how many hours do you need to spend away preparing for that game?
Yeah, so on game day, not non-playoff series, on an actual game day, I'll spend 5 hours before the game. And then you spend another 4 hours at the stadium before the game. So I pretty much block out all the day of that game or the night before if I'm fortunate enough. You just can't – baseball, you can't prepare for a game on Saturday on Monday. Too many things change. Numbers change, guys get hurt, roster changes. So there's really no way to kind of get out in front of it. So for me, it's been really day of the game, and then if it's a day game, primarily the night before.
Our audience is primarily amateur players, that 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old, that high school kid that has the same dream you had to play either college or professional baseball. You were drafted in the 22nd round by the Detroit Tigers. When you got noticed that you were going to be playing professional baseball, what was that like for you and your family?
Well, like I said, dream come true in my home state, hometown team that I rooted for. Grandfather worked on a ground crew for 22 years or so. I think for me it was probably a little harder than I realized, only because I had wanted everyone to see me play. And then getting traded to the Atlanta Braves and having TBS broadcast about, almost every game, that gave people in my hometown an opportunity to watch me play every game. But I think, when you think about the work in the hands of people that had an impact in your life, you're just glad for them, and you're about to, partake on your dream.
Let's get to your book, Starting and Closing. Everybody that came to lunch today got a copy. I believe you were signing copies
Yes.
for the baseball people here in the room, a lot of Texas high school coaches. But you talk about, the adversity you face. And we talk a lot, John, to that young player, even that young coach or coach that's been at it for 20 years. Baseball is a game of adversity and overcoming a lot of things and you've been able to overcome. I think, was it 7 surgeries?
6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, we lose
right
count
there,
sometimes.
yeah.
But, man, I know there are many times in your career after those surgeries where there had to be some people close to you, maybe loved ones, family, coaches that said, hey, Smoltz, you've had a great career. Why don't you just go do something else? You're obviously a great golfer. There's a lot of things you can do, charity work. What was driving John Smoltz to come back time and time again?
Well, biggest thing is inner drive to be the best I can be, and knowing that you had to pitch through some difficult times and play through some hurt, joints and body is part of the deal, part of the game. And ultimately, I realized that, through hard work and having the passion to pursue and learn from my mistakes is what drove me. My greatest accomplishments came from some of my greatest failures. And, motivated, in the beginning strictly about making it, and then realizing the perspective of my faith and just honoring God with the talents he gave me. I stopped performing for people, and started to actually perform for one. And that really was a big part of having peace, to know when to walk away. I mean, I wanted to play the game as long as I could. There's no doubt about that. But there comes a point where you realize you're not going to be able to. And some people hang on a little too far and probably stay a little long, and maybe some exit too early. I wanted to have the utmost peace of knowing I went as far as I could, carried myself in a way that would be a great example for those following. And then at the same time, when I walked away, I knew that I gave everything I had.
You talk about in the book, right here on page 2, I'm not afraid to fail. And I think that's a great message for all the people that are listening right now, whether you're a coach, a parent, a business person. So many people get caught up in the fear of failure that they don't ever try something or make an attempt or pursue their dreams. And, you talk about it often that you've overcome a lot of that adversity and you weren't afraid to step back in to the ballpark. Yeah,
failure is a motivator for a lot of people to stay comfortable and not experience any kind of greatness. And what I mean by that is your fear of failure will suffocate you and just allow you to be comfortable and just stay in what you know. And a lot of people can be okay with that, but to achieve great things in life, you're going to have to learn how to deal with failure, and you're going to have to learn that is a learning and teachable moment and not a defining moment. I think some people, I played a game that's a game of failures. The ones that fail, the 7 out of 10 times are considered Hall of Fame type players. And think about that. They're only successful 3 out of 10. You can make the glass half full or half empty. And I think for me, learning at an early age that even though I was gifted, I wasn't the best, and I had to learn from some of my mistakes, provided a great platform and opportunity that when I went through them at the big league level, it didn't suffocate me. Some of these great players today that play in all these showcase games, they have the great talent. They never experienced this, and when they experience it the first time, sometimes it's at the big league level, they have no basis for which to draw from. And no one should intentionally fail to experience those things, but I think you cannot possibly be great unless you get outside your comfort zone. And by doing that, you expose yourself to some things and feelings and failures that don't feel good at the time. And it's up to you to decide how you're going to handle that, get up, learn from it, and dust it off and become better.
Hey, I want to ask you, being an analyst and from the broadcast perspective, Kyler Murray, who played right up here in the Dallas area, obviously Heisman Trophy winner, Oklahoma football and baseball player, signed with the Oakland A's, and now it looks like he's going to go in the NFL draft. The first failure, the first loss he ever had as a football player was at OU, late in his career. So he learned a little bit about failure. What are your thoughts on Kyler Murray as a baseball player versus a football player?
Well, tremendously athlete and gifted to be able to have an opportunity to play either one. I would love to see him play baseball and have a much longer shelf life, but who's to say that wouldn't happen with the way the game football and protecting quarterbacks. He's obviously got the ability to make some choices. I've always said that this isn't a direct knock against baseball, but if someone has the ability to play the two sports and they choose football with all the injuries and all that comes with it, what is that saying about baseball? And, from the standpoint of his talents and what he can do, the game has shown in the last 5 years why certain analytics have pushed away the speed, the athleticism that it takes to play this great game of baseball, but it's been put on the back burner. There's shifts all over the place. You rarely play your position. So from that standpoint, I would love to have seen him kind of rejuvenate the athleticism and speed back in the game that seems to have been kind of morphed out.
John, I know you don't have much time. I'd love to have you on again where you got so much to talk about. Maybe final two questions. You had so many honors and so many achievements in the game of baseball, and you probably can't pin it on one thing, but what do you lean towards is the greatest moment during your career as a baseball player?
The greatest moment, you always dream about pitching in Game 7s. At least I did. I always pitched about being the guy, having the ball in the biggest moment, and delivering for your team. I always wanted in the biggest and highest moments of what we play in the playoffs to be able to deliver. And Game 7 I played over and over in my mind when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, dreamt what it would be like, and lived it in real life. Pitched against Jack Morris, the guy who idolized growing up. And pitching that game under those circumstances on 3 days rest and being able to pitch at the highest level, and ultimately we lost 1-0 in 10 innings. That's one of my greatest games I've ever pitched. But from an achievement standpoint, in the game of baseball, the thing I'm the most proud of actually is the Roberto Clemente Award and what it represents and what he represented. Because you got to be a pretty good baseball player, but it's the impact you've made throughout your community and in life, in which he did. That really means a lot. It's higher than the Cy Young Award. It's higher than a lot of things that I've been lucky enough to be part of.
John Smoltz, Hall of Famer. So glad to have you here on Behind the Dish. I know you got to head across the street and speak to several hundred Texas high school coaches, and I'm sure they're going to be on the edge of their seats listening to your story.
Well, thank you, and I'd love to get back on with you and talk a little bit about baseball, and certainly passionate about the game still. I just would love to see, honestly, I always said, when I got a chance to speak at the Hall of Fame, I made a couple mentions to parents to try to ease the burden and the pressure of their child having to play year-round baseball and having the injury rate the way it is. Why are we falling prey to some of these things that are out there promoting the game in a way that just is shortening the lifespan of a lot of these great athletes? And I tell parents all the time, you have time, the kids can have fun, their genetics are what they are. You do not have to play year-round baseball to become a Major League Baseball player, and yet alone a Hall of Famer. So hopefully that pressure is, I know it's boiling, I know it's getting greater, and there's more entities out there than ever before, and I hope parents can understand that your child does not have to spend a big league career at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old in the sense of length of season, length of games, and the amount of swings, the amount of throws, all that things that later in life are going to be able to, fully mature and be able to handle.
great message for the parents that are on here listening right now. Share this out and tag another parent that's on your team. Great message from John Smoltz.
Thanks for having me.